Do you believe that a place can bear the marks of human suffering? A place where time seems to have stood still and the past refuses to be forgotten? Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might surprise you. In the heart of British Columbia, in the quiet town of Coquitlam, there is a place that has haunted the imagination of anyone who dares to approach it for decades. His name is Riverview Hospital, and for many, he is Canada's most haunted psychiatric hospital. Built in the early 20th century, Riverview was for a long time the largest psychiatric center in the country. It was intended to be a haven for treatment and recovery, a symbol of progress in Canadian mental health. But over the years, what began as a shelter of hope ended up becoming a labyrinth of pain, isolation, and mystery. Thousands of patients passed through its iron gates, and many of them never came out again. Behind locked windows and cold walls, accounts of brutal treatments, electroshocks without anesthesia, and secret experiments began to circulate. People started whispering about screams coming from the hallways, lights flickering inexplicably, and shadows moving even when no one was there. And when the hospital finally closed, decades later, something seemed to have remained within its walls. Today, Riverview is an abandoned, vast complex of buildings reclaimed by nature, with broken windows, rusty beds, and silent hallways. But the silence, they say, is not emptiness. It is the sound of the past whispering. Urban explorers and ghost hunters who visit the site report experiences that defy reason. Cameras that suddenly freeze, flashlights that go out for no reason, distant voices calling names. Some say they feel a constant presence, as if the hospital was still alive, breathing in the fear and pain of those who pass through it. Have you ever felt that sudden shiver, as if someone were right behind you even when you were completely alone? Well, that's exactly the feeling Riverview evokes in anyone who crosses its gates. And what's most frightening is that, even decades after its closure, the hospital continues to attract curious onlookers and filmmakers from all over the world. The location has served as a setting for dozens of horror films and series, precisely because of its dark and realistic atmosphere, a setting that seems made for fear, but nothing that the movies show compares to the true stories that were born there. To understand why the Riverview Hospital in Coquitlam, the city has become synonymous with haunting and tragedy. To do so, one must go back in time to its founding, when Canada believed it could cure the mind through isolation and pain. Every brick in this place holds a secret, every room, a memory, and every echo in the hallways seems to bring back the voices of those forgotten by history. What really happened inside Riverview Hospital? Who were the people who suffered within its walls? And why do so many believe that their souls are still trapped there, wandering among the rubble? What follows may reveal one of the darkest and least known chapters of Canadian history, perhaps the most unsettling thing about Riverview Hospital. It's not the ghosts they say roam there, but the human stories that time has tried to erase. Each broken window seems to hide a fragment of pain, and each abandoned corridor holds echoes of lives that were left behind. Sometimes it's impossible not to wonder, what really happened between those walls? Can the suffering of so many people truly disappear, or does it remain there ingrained in the structures, like a silent lament that never stops? It is at this point that the story ceases to be just about a hospital and becomes about us, about how we deal with what we don't understand, about the fear of the different, and about forgetting. Riverview. In a way, it's a mirror. It reflects mistakes, ignorance, and the desire to erase what frightens us. And perhaps that's why so many people feel something inexplicable when they look at it. A mixture of curiosity and respect, fear and empathy. And if this subject evokes something in you, if in some way this story makes you think, gives you goosebumps, or simply makes you reflect, leave a comment below telling us what has touched you the most so far. Your opinion can bring new perspectives, new interpretations, and that's precisely what makes this space more than just a simple channel, a community of people who believe that the past should not be forgotten. Your participation is what keeps this project alive. When you comment, like the video, or subscribe, You're helping to spread these stories far beyond this point, allowing more people to discover the secrets hidden in the forgotten corners of Canada. It's a simple gesture, but it makes an immense difference to those who dedicate hours to researching and reconstructing these fragments of time. So if you enjoy exploring abandoned places, real mysteries, and stories that the world has tried to bury, hit the like button, subscribe, and come be a part of this journey. Because each of your clicks is like a flashlight lit in the darkness, and together we can illuminate what was almost lost. Now, get ready, because what comes next will take us even deeper into the secrets of Riverview Hospital and the dark stories it still tries to hide. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, and to understand the true dimension of Riverview Hospital. To understand this, we need to go back more than 100 years, to when it was inaugurated, in an era when mental health was almost uncharted territory. At that time, knowledge of psychology was still in its infancy, and society viewed any deviation from what was considered normal as a threat or a problem to be hidden. People with severe depression, epilepsy, intense anxiety, or even with ideas considered eccentric, could be institutionalized without question and often never returned to their families. The idea of cure, which should be the core of a psychiatric hospital, quickly became confused with isolation and control, and what should have been a place of refuge transformed into a space of rigid and painful confinement. What is most striking is the way these decisions were made. Doctors, administrators, and authorities sincerely believed they were shaping behavior and restoring the mental order of patients, but the practices that emerged from this mentality reflected a profound disregard for human rights. Historical documents show treatments that today seem cruel or even unbelievable. Isolation in tiny cells, electroshock therapy administered without anesthesia, restrictive diets that further weakened patients, and in some cases experimental treatments with medications or therapies that no one knew for sure if they would work. Each of these decisions, even if justified by the science of the time, carried a profound impact on those who had little or no voice within the system. And at the same time, there's a human side that is often ignored. It's easy to think in terms of numbers and statistics, but behind each record lies a story of interrupted life. Young women and elderly men, people seeking relief from their pain, all thrown into a system that offered no real care, but rather rigid routines and silent punishments. It's impossible not to feel empathy when imagining someone walking through those corridors, not knowing if they would return home, unable to explain their experiences to their family, and facing an unknown called medical treatment that could mean physical and psychological suffering. The journey of these people, marked by loneliness and incomprehension, is what still echoes in the abandoned corridors of Riverview today. Furthermore, the hospital became the stage for secret experiments that went far beyond what most of society could imagine. Some of these tests were conducted under the guise of scientific advancement, but in practice, they placed patients in extreme situations without consent and often without a clear record of what was happening. There are reports of procedures that attempted to modify behaviors or induce states of conformity, always in the name of science and modernity. It is a cruel reminder of how the pursuit of knowledge, when combined with a rigid mindset and a lack of ethics, can transform institutions that should heal into places of suffering. Even though these practices are now in the past, history leaves deep traces. The way the system treated the most vulnerable reveals much about the society of the time, its beliefs, its fears, and its distorted concept of normality. It also invites us to reflect on transformation, on how our collective mentality has evolved, on decisions that can impact lives, and on the responsibility we have to remember and learn from these hidden truths. Every brick of Riverview carries a silent testimony. Every abandoned corridor is a fragment of forgotten history. And every shadow that moves in the accounts of urban explorers is a reminder that the past never truly disappears. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because understanding Riverview's dark beginnings is just the gateway to revealing how these practices and decisions shaped not only the hospital's reputation, but also the legacy it left for the city of Coquitlam and for Canada itself. By analyzing the institution's inner workings, we realize that what seemed to be a simple sanatorium became a journey of suffering, resistance, and invisible memories. This hidden truth, which blends human suffering and historical curiosity, is the key to understanding why Riverview continues to fascinate, haunt, and generate profound reflections on health, ethics, and society. Comment below. I am fascinated. If this story moved you and made you think about what lies beyond the walls of Riverview, now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Because, to truly understand the Riverview Hospital, we need to explore the echoes of horror that still seem to reside in every corridor, every abandoned room, and every piece of furniture left behind. It's not just about ghost stories or hauntings, it's about stories of human suffering that have remained etched in the memory of the place, as if the building itself had absorbed all the emotions of those who passed through it. Survivors and former employees describe experiences so intense that they defy logic. Accounts of electric shocks administered without anesthesia, total isolation that could last for days or weeks, and the constant feeling that the walls somehow listened to every word, every sigh. These accounts are not mere urban legends. Many are documented in official testimonies, internal diaries, and medical records that, although incomplete, reveal a disturbing pattern of pain and experimentation. But what makes Riverview truly enigmatic goes beyond physical suffering. There are stories of voices echoing from the walls, footsteps emerging from the void, and shadows moving in the corridors when no one is present. Visitors who explored the hospital years after its closure report a constant sense of presence, a sudden chill, a shiver down the spine, a feeling of being watched. And these aren't just subjective sensations. There are records of electronic equipment mysteriously malfunctioning, cameras recording disjointed images, and doors locking themselves. It's as if the past is trying to communicate, leaving traces of experiences that should never be forgotten. Documents found decades later also reveal unexplained disappearances of patients. Many were officially registered as transferred or relocated, but there is no evidence of their actual destinations. Some names simply vanish from the files, and there are no records of deaths, permanent transfers, or any plausible explanation. These disappearances contributed to the aura of mystery surrounding the hospital, and fueled theories that certain practices or decisions within Riverview could have had far darker consequences than official records suggest. Each disappearance story is a fragment of hidden truth, a reminder that the impact of decisions made there goes far beyond what any administrative report could capture. The hospital corridors, even abandoned, seem to carry a memory of their own. Urban explorers describe the feeling of walking through places where history is still palpable, as if each wall could tell its own version of the past. The silence is heavy, almost suffocating, and the perception of time changes. Minutes can seem like hours, and each sound, a creaking door, a breaking board, gains an intensity that defies rational explanation. It is an emotionally immersive experience, in which the visitor not only observes but feels the weight of the decisions, mistakes, and suffering that have accumulated over the decades. This sensory and psychological impact transforms Riverview into more than an abandoned place. It becomes a silent testament to a reality that history tried to bury, but which insists on remaining. The horror there is not only physical, it is also psychological and symbolic. The feeling of isolation, of being watched, and of having no control over one's own destiny reflects the experience lived by so many patients. And it is this combination of elements, suffering, abandonment, mystery, and historical records, that gives Riverview its unique reputation. It is a space where every shadow, every empty corridor, and every forgotten object seems to carry fragments of interrupted lives, controversial decisions, and mindsets that today make us reflect on ethics, compassion, and responsibility. Furthermore, the hospital serves as a study of how places carry memory and energy. What happened there did not disappear with the closing of the building. On the contrary, it seems to have become incorporated into the very structure, creating an environment where history is physically felt and not just known through documents. This dimension of hidden truth transforms a visit to Riverview into an intense and unsettling experience, in which the past and present meet, revealing the inner workings of a system that often failed to protect the most vulnerable. Each account, each old document, and each experience of those who passed through there contributes to a profoundly impactful narrative, showing that Riverview is not just an abandoned hospital, but a window into what society did and failed to do in the name of science, order, and progress. It is a reminder that places carry memory, and that history, however much we try to forget it, finds ways to remain alive in echoes, silences, and sensations that defy reason. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, exploring how these experiences and historical records connect to the contemporary perception of the hospital and the fascination it still evokes, showing that each corridor, each room, and each abandoned vestige holds lessons about decisions, ethics, transformation, and the complexity of the human experience. Comment below. The walls still remember, if you felt the weight of what happened inside Riverview. Let's push this investigation even further, because what makes Riverview so haunting isn't just what once happened inside, it's what still lingers today. In the silence, the decay, and the way time itself seems to resist letting go. The hospital, once the largest psychiatric center in Canada, is now a forgotten ruin, swallowed by vegetation, surrounded by trees that seem to whisper memories, and shrouded in a constant mist that gives the place an almost supernatural aura. Every broken corridor, every empty window, and every crumbling piece of concrete is a silent reminder of what happened there. But more than stones and walls, Riverview carries echoes of decisions, choices, and mindsets that shaped the experience of thousands of people, transforming the place into a living testament to human impact and the complexity of dealing with the unknown. Urban explorers venturing through these ruins report experiences that defy logic and perception. Electronic equipment stops working without explanation. Cameras record figures that disappear before being seen with the naked eye, and inexplicable sounds, footsteps, whispers, creaking doors seem to manifest in the empty corridors. It's as if each object, each piece of abandoned furniture, and each vestige of the past holds its own memory, carrying with it an energy that cannot be ignored. The feeling of being watched is described by many as intense, a chill that runs down the spine and a shiver unrelated to the outside weather. This legacy is not just a matter of fear, it is the tangible impact of choices, decisions, and practices that left deep marks and continue to be felt even decades after the hospital's closure. The contrast between the natural landscape that now surrounds the hospital and the accounts of unexplained events creates intense emotional tension. Nature, which is slowly reclaiming the space, does not erase what happened there. On the contrary, it seems to amplify the feeling of abandonment and mystery. Tall trees block the light, fog invades corridors and halls, and the silence, although apparent, is far from total. It is in this environment that imagination mixes with perception, and visitors report a feeling that the past has not truly been left behind. Each corridor becomes a stage for untold stories, each shadow suggests an invisible presence, and each abandoned object maintains a connection with the events that occurred there, as if the hospital itself were an open book that only a few can read. At the same time, Riverview's legacy leads us to reflect on ethics, transformation, and responsibility. It shows us that human decisions, even when based on legitimate beliefs or the science of the time, can have lasting and sometimes unpredictable impacts. What was routine for the administrators was suffering for the patients. What seemed innovative to the doctors was pain for the interns. And this dichotomy between intention and consequence is an essential part of the place's fascination. It is a reminder that every choice carries weight, and that the past, however much we try to leave it behind, insists on remaining alive in the physical structures and in the collective memory. The hospital also offers a unique opportunity to study how history is preserved in abandoned spaces. Each ruin functions as a fragment of a larger puzzle, revealing layers of human decisions, practices, and experiences that connect to a much larger narrative about Canadian society, science, medicine, and ethics. It is impressive to realize how, even amidst abandonment, the presence of Riverview continues to provoke reflection, fear, curiosity, and an almost tangible sense that the place is more than a building. It is a legacy of choices, transformations, and hidden truths that cannot be ignored. Furthermore, there is a fascinating tension between what is officially documented and what is perceived by visitors. Authorities deny any paranormal activity, but many report that the feeling of being in contact with something inexplicable is real. Cameras capture disjointed images, equipment malfunctions for no apparent reason, and the sounds that spread through the corridors have no logical explanation. It's as if the hospital carries within it the memory of all the voices, screams, and decisions made there, transforming each visit into a deeply immersive experience in which the present and the past intertwine in an almost palpable way. What remains today is not just physical ruin, but a living narrative of pain, resistance, and remembrance, connecting us to each patient, each employee, and each decision that shaped the history of Riverview. This combination of abandonment, history, and mystery creates an almost cinematic effect. It's impossible not to feel transported to a time when the hospital was fully operational, feeling the tension in the corridors, the pressure of medical decisions, and the impact of each intervention on people's lives. At the same time, the feeling of an invisible presence, of echoes that seem to emerge from the walls, of objects and shadows that defy reason, adds a layer of suspense and fascination that makes Riverview a unique place, capable of provoking reflection on ethics, responsibility, social transformations, and the relationship between past and present. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, to explore how these experiences, ruins, and historical records connect to a broader understanding of memory, impact, and legacy. Riverview Hospital is not merely a forgotten physical structure. It is a portrait of human choices, of decisions made in complex contexts, and of how these elements shape our understanding of history and human experience. Every corridor, every shadow, every account, and every surviving record contributes to a narrative that blends fascination, horror, learning, and reflection, revealing that the hospital's abandonment is also a reflection of how we deal with the past, with the consequences of our actions, and with the hidden truth that persists. Before we go deeper into what Riverview became, we need to remember what it truly was, not just a hospital, but a reflection of an era when pain was misunderstood and silence was mistaken for healing. The real horror isn't in the ghost stories or strange photographs, but in the lives that were silenced, in the echoes of suffering still trapped within the walls of that place, and in the way that time has not been able to completely erase what happened within those walls. What's truly unsettling isn't the apparitions or the strange images caught on camera. It's the human stories that were silenced in the voices of patients who had no way to tell their own experiences, and in the echoes of suffering that remain ingrained in the very structure of the hospital. Every brick, every corridor, and every abandoned object is a silent testament to what society at the time considered acceptable, to how the collective mentality dealt with the unknown, and to how decisions, however scientific or administrative, had profound and lasting impacts. Walking through the ruins today, it's impossible not to feel this duality between abandonment and living memory. Nature reclaiming the space, the trees, the mist, the vegetation growing between broken walls creates an almost cinematic setting, but also intensifies the feeling that every shadow and every sound carries fragments of real stories. Visitors report the sudden chill that runs through the corridors, footsteps that seem to appear out of nowhere, doors that creak even without wind, and figures that disappear before they can be clearly seen. It's an experience that combines curiosity, fascination, and fear. But above all, it awakens empathy, because what one feels there is, ultimately, the consequence of interrupted lives, misguided decisions, and human suffering that should not be forgotten. And it is precisely this connection between past and present that makes Riverview's legacy so powerful. While authorities may deny any paranormal activity, the perception of those who visit or study the place reveals something much greater. The impact of human choices does not disappear with time. The hospital functions as a kind of mirror, showing not only the evolution of psychiatric medicine, but also the errors and limitations of a society that for too long silenced the pain of its most vulnerable members. Each abandoned corridor, each empty room, each forgotten object is a capsule of history, a silent lesson on ethics, responsibility, and the importance of reflecting on how we treat one another. Furthermore, looking at Riverview confronts us with a broader reflection on transformation and memory. It teaches us that places carry the weight of what happened within them, that yesterday's decisions shape today's perceptions, and that history, however much we try to forget it, persists in unexpected ways. The fog enveloping the hospital, the sounds echoing through the corridors, and the feeling of an invisible presence are symbolic manifestations of something greater, a reminder that the past is never truly dead, and that as long as we tell its stories, the patients who suffered there will never be completely forgotten. Riverview is not merely a physical ruin. It is a testament to human journeys, to decisions that impacted lives, to hidden truths that resist the passage of time, and to a legacy that blends pain, fascination, and learning. Even when the hospital seems asleep among trees and shadows, it continues to teach us about courage, empathy, and responsibility. Each visitor, each historian, each explorer who walks through its ruins becomes part of a chain of memory that keeps alive the experience of those who were silenced. Feeling the cold, hearing footsteps, or perceiving the heavy silence, we are invited to reflect on the fragility of life, on the weight of human decisions, and on the importance of not letting stories of suffering be erased. There is an invisible force in this place that transcends fear. It is the force of remembrance, of hidden truth, and of the transformation that occurs when we allow ourselves to fully understand the impact of the past. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because reflecting on Riverview leads us to question not only what happened within its walls, but how we, as a society, deal with pain, silence, and memory. It's an opportunity to realize that, even amidst ruins and shadows, a thread of connection still exists with those who lived, suffered, and resisted there, and that as long as we tell these stories, they remain present in ways that transcend time and space. If you've made it this far, it means that this story of Riverview Hospital, it truly piqued your curiosity and moved you, just as it moved me as you recounted every detail. If this journey through the dark past and forgotten corridors resonated with you, leave a comment saying, "I'm with you until the end." It will be incredible to see who joined you on this journey through history, mystery, and hidden truths. And if you felt that this dive brought some value, sparked reflection, or simply made your heart race with suspense, give the video a like. It's a way of showing that real stories, even the darkest ones, deserve to be told and remembered. Each click helps keep alive the curiosity, the investigation, and the connection we created together throughout the content. And look, there's a video over here that complements this topic, bringing even more forgotten stories and places that time has almost erased. Click and continue with me there. Let's continue on this journey, exploring the behind the scenes of history, the echoes of the past, and everything that is still waiting to be discovered.